A Torah diet.
And it's not to lose weight.
From the previous tragic episode of Nadav and Avihu, Bnei Yisroel indeed learned a valuable lesson.
Hashem is the one who makes the rules.
And every single detail is important to him, never to be changed, even if we may think otherwise.
The next part of Shemini is dedicated to a special mitzvah that Jews are involved with every single day of the year, and there are plenty of details pertaining to it.
It's called kosher, the Torah diet.
It's something that has kept us aware and on our toes for the past few thousand years, ever since we became a holy nation. No doubt that kosher is the most well-known mitzvah even to non-Jews. Just walk into any supermarket, just about anywhere in the world, and you will find a seemingly endless supply of products with kosher symbols. In Shazak Parsha, we'll find out why we keep kosher, where the word kosher comes from, and what makes certain animals, birds, and fish kosher.
You may be surprised to discover that there are some kosher locusts.
You'll also find out why some Jewish people will never eat turkey.
By the way, there is another Parsha in the Chumash which also speaks about kosher.
It's in the book of Devarim and Parshas for 8.
And there we'll even learn more interesting kosher facts.
Soul food. So, why do we keep kosher?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The answer is that since the Torah does not tell us the reason behind this important mitzvah, we keep kosher simply because Hashem commanded us to do so. Kosher food is something that is good for our neshama, our extraordinary Jewish soul. Believe it or not once in the 5 books of the Torah does it mention the word kosher.
Really?
I don't believe it.
Instead, the Torah uses the word tahor, meaning spiritually pure, and for non-kosher foods, tameh, meaning spiritually impure.
Wow!
Egypt and Spain, 2 countries and 2 great rabbis. Although Hashem did not clearly explain the reason for keeping kosher, there were great rabbis who tried to offer some reasons, as they do with many mitzvos. One of the greatest rabbis of them all, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, also known as the Rambam, who lived in the 13th century, surprised people with his explanation. His opinion was written in his book called Moreh Nevuchim, which he wrote while he was in Egypt. According to Rambam, kosher equals cleanliness. A pig, for example, is dirty from spending his day rolling in the mud, and could make one who eats pig awfully sick. Hashem wanted us to stay healthy and therefore gave us the laws of keeping kosher. The Rambam was highly criticized by other great rabbis.
If kosher is a matter of hygiene,
They claimed,
then one could take the proper precautions and make sure the pig is properly cleaned. Then it too would be kosher. Also, if eating kosher is a health benefit, why are Jews the only nation commanded to keep kosher? Surely Hashem wants everyone to be healthy.
Another great rabbi who lived a bit after the Rambam was Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman from Spain. He was known as the Ramban, not to be confused with Rambam. And in his commentary on the Chumash, he pointed out something very interesting.
Have you ever heard the expression, you are what you eat? According to the Ramban, people take on the qualities of the things they eat. In general, kosher animals are domesticated, gentle species, as opposed to the wild, non-kosher animals. Sheep, cows, and deer are kosher, while lions, bears, camels, and horses are not.
Not everyone was happy with the Ramban's explanation.
Why are non-Jews not commanded to keep kosher?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if everyone keeps the laws of kosher?
Can't non-Jews also be what they eat, a kinder and gentler people?
Well, these 2 reasons of the Rambam and Ramban are perhaps what we may call the side benefits for keeping kosher. Indeed, plenty of mitzvos have side benefits. Heart blockage. The bottom line? Keeping kosher is exactly what the Torah says. It's tahor, a pure, healthy diet for our unique Jewish soul. Indeed, other great rabbis speak about this spiritual benefit. They say that eating non-kosher causes a major blockage for anything spiritual. It's called
Mitamtem es halev.
Literally, it blocks up the heart. Think about people who constantly listen to blasting music. After a while, it dulls their hearing.
What did you say?
Turn up the volume.
So too, when someone eats non-kosher, it actually affects his or her spiritual hearing. They may have difficulty understanding and appreciating Hashem's Torah, or find it a burden to perform mitzvos.
The good news is it is never too late. After a switch to a kosher diet, this spiritual dullness can little by little be reversed for the better.
Kosher, the word. Everyone is familiar with the word kosher. In fact, kosher is so well known that it has become a word in the English dictionary with no connection to the Jewish dietary laws. It means genuine or legitimate, as in,
This guy in the subway station wanted to sell me a huge diamond ring for the low price of $2,482. But I had a hunch that wasn't very kosher.
or
She consulted her lawyers to make sure everything was kosher.
the Mishnah in Tractate Brachos talks about the non-Jewish servant of the great Rabbi Gamliel, whose name was Tavi. Rabbi Gamliel admired his servant greatly and proudly gave him the title kosher, a genuine, wonderful person. Similarly, when food is kosher, it means that the food is a legitimate, proper food that has Hashem's stamp of approval. But kosher has another meaning to it.
It means prepared.
Even if a certain type of animal is a kosher species, it is not fit to eat until it is prepared in a kosher way. There are many steps to make kosher meat actually kosher enough to eat. First of all, a kosher animal must be slaughtered humanely by a trained shochet, ritual slaughterer, with a perfectly smooth knife that doesn't cause the animal any pain. Then the meat must be soaked in salted to remove every bit of blood.
We'll be learning more about these laws in a few weeks in Parsha-at-a-Glance, so stay tuned.
Show and tell. We have seen in previous Parshios that in order to make everything perfectly clear, Hashem showed Moshe images of certain things. Even the wise Moshe had a hard time understanding how exactly the menorah of the Mishkan should look in all its intricate details. Once Hashem showed him the exact image of the menorah, then everything became crystal clear. Now the tables were turned.
It was time for Moshe Rabbeinu's audio-visual kosher lesson.
He had to explain to Bnei Yisroel about the laws of kosher without room for error. Moshe held up samples of kosher animals, saying, "This is what you may eat," and samples of non-kosher animals. "Watch out! Do not eat these!" Together with his detailed explanations, Moshe made absolutely sure that every single Jew would understand the rules of keeping kosher. Our Parsha deals with 5 different types of food and lets us know in a clear way how to determine whether they are kosher. It begins with animals,
Continues with fish,
Then birds,
then jumping insects, and finally finishes up with crawling creatures.
2 signs of a kosher animal. Moshe held up a kosher animal and said to everyone, "Look carefully. This is a kosher animal. These are the two signs you need to look for. Number 1, it has completely split hooves. Animals' feet are called hooves. Number 2, it chews its cud. Some animals bring food back up that they have already swallowed and chew it again for better digestion." Examples of kosher animals with both signs would be cows, sheep, goats, or deer. Moshe then picked up a non-kosher animal and said, "It doesn't matter whether it is missing both signs or it only has one of the two signs. Either way, it's not kosher. Horses, donkeys, lions, bears, and many other animals do not have either sign." Moshe continued, "The camel, the hyrax, and the hare chew their cud but do not have split hooves. These are not kosher. A pig is just the opposite. It has split hooves, but does not chew its cud. Make no mistake, these animals are not 50% kosher. They are 100% not kosher." Moshe Rabbeinu specified only the pig as having split hooves and not chewing its cud, for a very good reason. From his time until today, nobody has ever found another animal on the face of the earth that has split hooves but does not chew its cud.
That's a long time.
Over 3,300 years.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Believe it or not.
1 or 2 kosher signs for fish.
From animals to fish.
Moshe carefully held up a kosher fish without it slipping out of his hands and said, "Let's turn our attention to the fish of the sea. See these fins and scales?" he asked. "These are the two signs of a kosher fish."
So, tuna, salmon, trout, whitefish, carp, or herring,
To name a few,
are kosher.
Other fish, like sharks, swordfish, or catfish, don't have these kosher signs.
All shellfish, including clams, crab, oyster, and shrimp, are not kosher.
finding kosher fish to eat is really quite easy. Unlike kosher meat of an animal or bird, where you need the shechita process, kosher slaughtering, to make it kosher, once a fish comes out of the water, it is as if it already had this kosher shechita. To make matters even easier, the rabbis of the Talmud share with us an interesting fact. Any fish that has scales also has fins. So to determine whether a fish is kosher, all you need to be sure of is that the fish has scales.
Wow!
This worked just great in the olden days when people would fish for themselves or go to the fish market, where they could easily see the scales on the fish.
Excellent.
But nowadays, with most fish prepackaged and skinless, and even in cans, there is no way you can actually see the scales.
So how do you know if a fish is kosher?
Look on the packaging for a reliable kosher symbol.
Really?
Oh, yeah!
Gone fishing. But not for gefilte fish.
I'm very confused.
Jews worldwide and throughout the ages have a special custom to eat fish on Shabbos. Of all Shabbos fish, the most popular is called gefilte fish.
But what kind of fish is that?
Was ist das?
Actually, no one in history has ever caught a live gefilte fish.
That's because there's no breed of fish called gefilte fish.
Really?
That's right. That is correct.
You see, gefilte is a Yiddish word meaning filled.
Gefilte fish is made up of all different kinds of fish, chopped up and mixed together, filled with spices and other delicious ingredients.
Then it's cooked and served with its little kippah on top, a slice of carrot.
Kosher Birds. It's called Masorah, tradition.
From animals
To fish.
to birds.
Just like the animals and fish, Bnei Yisrael were waiting for the signs of kosher birds, but that did not happen. Instead, Moshe showed them non-kosher species of birds. We're going to make this simple, Moshe said to Bnei Yisrael. Look carefully at each of these 20 birds. Nesher, not kosher.
Check.
Paras, not kosher. Oznia, not kosher. Da'a, not kosher. Duchefas, not kosher. Bas Hayana, not kosher. And so Moshe continued lifting up one bird at a time for all to see. Here's the rule, Moshe concluded. There are no special signs for birds. All you have to remember is that every one of these 20 species are not kosher. Any other bird is kosher. Simple?
It sure was.
But not for long.
Over the years, the exact identity of many of these 20 non-kosher birds listed in the Torah have been lost and forgotten. We may be able to read their Hebrew names, as mentioned in the Torah, whether it's a duchefas or a bas hayana, but we are not sure exactly which birds they are.
Wait a minute! What do we do now?
Too bad we don't have a video clip of Moshe Rabbeinu's kosher presentation.
So how do we know which birds are kosher?
The key word is Masorah, an unbroken chain of tradition. We only eat birds that have been certified kosher by our parents and teachers throughout the generations. These kosher Masorah birds include chicken, ducks, geese, and pigeons.
Besides the Masorah, there is another point to consider.
Years ago, some rabbis of the Talmud looked carefully at the list of 20 non-kosher birds and noticed that they shared something in common. They are all birds of prey, birds that eat other animals, and they have sharp claws. Eagles, hawks, vultures, and owls are good examples of birds of prey. They even hunt other birds and rip them to pieces.
Remember the saying, you are what you eat.
Flying, crawling creatures.
From animals
To fish.
to birds.
To flying creatures.
After the flying birds kosher lesson, it was now time for a similar lesson. Flying, jumping, crawling creatures. Moshe carefully showed them grasshoppers and a variety of locust species. These flying, jumping, crawling creatures are not kosher. However, there are several locust species that are an exception to this rule. Moshe Rabbeinu then held up 4 specific types of locusts and announced, "You see these? Look carefully at these locusts. It's the arba, the salam, the chagal, and the chagab locusts. Each and every one of them, together with their entire species, are kosher."
Yes, it was true.
Among the many species of locusts, Moshe showed them 4 species that were kosher.
So why don't we eat locusts nowadays?
That's a good question.
Once again, it's the Masorah issue. Our Masorah of locusts has been forgotten. We don't know exactly the identity of the arba, the salam, the chagal, and the chagav, so we don't eat any locusts. Period.
Truth is, not eating locusts is quite easy to observe.
After all, would you want fried locusts for the main course at your birthday party? Ew.
I think not. Yemen, Morocco, Jerusalem, and locusts. Believe it or not, there are Jews from the country of Yemen who claim that they never lost this Masorah, and they know exactly which locusts are kosher.
Nowadays, there is even a kosher Yemenite restaurant in Jerusalem that has locusts on the menu.
And it's the real thing.
Oh my!
Now let's travel west. Over 3,000 miles to the country of Morocco.
The next station is
There's a famous commentary on the Chumash written by Rabbi Chaim Ibn Attar, also known as the Or HaChaim. He writes that in the early 1700s, when he was in Morocco, he witnessed Jews eating locusts they claimed to be kosher. The great rabbi protested, claiming that we have lost the Masorah.
Not only that,
continues Rabbi Chaim,
it has been over 12 years since the Jews of Morocco have accepted my rebuke. And during this period, not one time did any part of Morocco experience a locust invasion.
Wow, what an amazing miracle!
Yes, keeping the Torah works is a great protection, just like a strong shield protects from any vicious attack.
Crawling creatures.
From animals
To fish.
to birds
To flying, crawling creatures.
to non-flying crawling creatures.
Moshe Rabbeinu had a bunch of creepy crawling creatures by his side, some of them quite dangerous.
Oh, don't panic! Don't panic! Are you all right?
And as he spoke, he lifted them high in the air for all to see. Moshe held up a snake. Any creature that goes on its belly. Then he lifted up some slimy, slippery worms. Any creatures that slither. Moshe bravely held up a scorpion. And have 4 legs. Now a beetle. Any tiny creature. Finally, he raised up in the air a unique insect with numerous legs called a centipede. Any creature that has many legs. Moshe continued with a harsh warning. My fellow Jews, eating these creatures will make yourselves shekets, abominable. Pronounced a bomb in a bull.
That was funny.
Not only that, Vinit Mesef, you will become Tameh, impure. Insects and ABCs. Moshe held up some insects. Now for a simple kosher law. Not a single insect is kosher, period. No doubt you wouldn't want to eat insects anyway.
Ew!
But one really has to be careful, because there are plenty of tiny bugs hidden in our kosher vegetables.
That's so disgusting.
If you don't check carefully, you might not know they're there, and...
Oops!
Here's the ABCs of some of these problematic foods where tiny bugs just love hiding out.
A for asparagus.
B for broccoli.
And C for cauliflower.
Does that mean you can never eat these vegetables?
Not really.
There are several solutions.
Number 1.
The best practice is to make sure that you purchase these vegetables with a kosher reliable symbol.
Many of them are sold frozen and clearly state on the packaging that they are kosher. Without going into many details, these certifying agencies search for places all over the world that are least likely to have insect infestation. They also make sure that the companies they certify have a state-of-the-art cleaning process. Number 2.
Then there's also a do-it-yourself solution.
Find out from your local rabbi or kosher homemaker how to clean and check vegetables that may contain bugs.
Beware, each type of vegetable has its own method.
Some need to be washed thoroughly and then inspected closely in a bright light. Others just need a quick wash under the tap water of your sink. Regardless, For more information, it's always a good idea to ask your local rabbi.
Or visit your reliable kosher agency.
Another kind of kosher sign. There is another type of kosher sign that helps us know what we're allowed to eat. It's called hechsherim, those little symbols that are printed on packages of food we buy in the grocery store. These symbols, which are registered trademarks, let us know that a rabbi who is an expert in the laws of kosher regularly visits the production factory. His job is to make sure that all the ingredients are kosher and the food was processed on kosher equipment.
Without a reliable kosher symbol, it would be impossible to figure out whether a certain food product is kosher to eat.
Even if you read the list of ingredients, that's not enough to be sure. For example, what does natural flavor or natural color mean?
Flavorings or colorings made from animals or insects are 100% natural. But, no doubt about it, they are not kosher. Also, never rely on the letter K on the packaging for kosher. Any company is allowed to put a letter, any letter, on their packaging.
No law against that.
That's why all kosher certifying agencies make sure to have a unique symbol.
Bottom line,
the kosher sign is the only way to know for sure.
Since there are hundreds and hundreds of kosher symbols, it's a good idea to ask your rabbi which ones you can rely on.
Details count. Remember at the beginning of our Parsha how through the tragedy of Nadav and Avihu, Bnei Yisroel learned a very important lesson? The lesson was clear. Never sway, not to the right nor to the left, from Hashem's instructions. Details regarding mitzvahs of Hashem are vital. Otherwise, it's not a mitzvah. Now let's see how the concluding words of Hashem emphasize this very same concept as we finish Parshas Shemini. These are the words of Hashem.
I am Hashem who took you out of Egypt. Be holy. Learn how to distinguish between kosher and non-kosher. Details count. Even a fraction of an inch can make the difference between a kosher slaughter and a non-kosher one.